It goes without saying that Ace and his role in the story of One Piece have been a wildly controversial topic. Many adore his character for its cool and charming design, while many others criticize it for its lack of character development and impulsive behavior. And at the height of this debate stands of course the climax of Ace's tragic story arc, his defeat by Blackbeard, his capture by the Marines, his liberation by Luffy, and finally, his sacrifice for his younger brother. A common point of criticism regarding Ace's death is that Ace did not have enough character development to make his death feel impactful enough. And while emotional connection to a character is, and always will be, a subjective experience for every one of us, I find that this argument is somewhat missing the point of Ace's role in the story. Because not every character in a story can, or even should, undergo character development. In fact, there are 3 types of character arcs that a character can go through: positive change, negative change, or no change at all. Ace, just as many other important side characters in the story, has a flat character arc, meaning he doesn't change his view on the world, but stays a constant throughout his appearances in the story. His entire life, Ace is struggling with the legacy of his father's name, having to suffer under both the burning hatred as well as the flaming admiration people had for Roger. Being born as the son of the worst criminal of his age, until his very last moment, Ace is struggling to find meaning in his life and whether he ever deserved to live in the first place. The one thing he can cling on to is his burning will to protect his friends and family from any harm. His death, therefore, was one of the most shocking events in the entirety of One Piece. Especially so since Oda is very careful and averse when it comes to killing of characters. And most importantly, Ace's death was not a Disney death, where the person suddenly comes back to life in the end. No, what makes this moment so incredibly powerful is that it is final and has real consequences. And therefore, in this video, I want to talk about the tragedy of Portgas D Ace, and why his death is one of the fundamental cornerstones of the One Piece story. Because Luffy losing his beloved older brother not only deepens our protagonist's character, but it also advances the plot in a crucial way, and of course also impacts us, the readers, emotionally. When I talk about how Ace's death has deepened Luffy's character, I believe it goes much deeper than simply showing Luffy that he has to become stronger. In fact, Luffy already was aware of this back on Water 7, when he talks to Bruno about his devastating defeat by Aokiji. And, of course, losing his crew to Kizaru and Kuma, against both of whom he stood not the slightest chance, also made Luffy realize that he had to become much more powerful. So no, Ace's death was not simply a way for Luffy to become stronger. Losing his treasured older brother, whom he had shared such a happy and adventurous childhood with, shook Luffy to his core, and from there developed his character fundamentally. Having his loving bond with his brother cut just when he had managed to finally do the impossible and save him from the Marines, threw Luffy into deep distress and despair. Being characterized by his positive, easygoing, and at times naive nature, Luffy has to learn that not every obstacle can be overcome through determination alone. For the first time ever, he was not able to fulfill a goal he set himself. He gave everything he had to save his brother, and he still failed. He realizes that loss and failure are things that can actually happen to him if he's not willing to take things seriously. But it goes even further than this. It makes Luffy question his entire purpose for setting out to sea. Losing both his crew and Ace is an absolute low point in his adventure. However, the experience allows him to realize that his crew are not only his friends, but his family, and that he has to grow significantly in order to be able to protect them from Ace's fate. Thus, he literally inherits Ace's will to protect those he holds dear at any cost. It is the decisive trigger for Luffy to become the powerful and more mature captain that he is today. And finally, seeing his brother murdered in front of his own eyes also gave Luffy his first ever antagonist that he resents on a personal level. Killing Ace and literally burning the mark of his death into Luffy's chest is a permanent visual reminder of what the Admiral did to our protagonist. In the end, Luffy comes out of his grief as a stronger, wiser, and overall more mature captain, facing a strong antagonist that he truly resents with all his heart. But Ace's tragic character arc does even more for the story than just developing Luffy. It advances the plotline significantly and sets the stage for the second half of the story. While some people disliked Ace's defeat by Blackbeard and his subsequent capture by the Marines, these events not only introduced Blackbeard as Luffy's biggest rival for the story, but it also placed Luffy as Ace's little brother right at the center of the Impel Down at Marineford arcs. This was crucial, since both arcs did not only introduce a ton of new important characters, but also rang in the end of Roger's and Whitebeard's era and the beginning of the New Age. Since Ace wanted to make Whitebeard king of the pirates, and Whitebeard in turn to make Ace pirate king, there was very little room for Luffy to come closer to his goal. This new power vacuum created by Whitebeard's death was not only convenient, but necessary for both Luffy and Blackbeard to have a realistic shot at finding the One Piece. And this war taking place and Luffy being able to be present there was only possible because his adopted brother, the son of the former pirate king himself, was to be publicly executed and politicized by the world government. And beside that, the war and Luffy's tragic loss also served as a midpoint climax to the entire series, which gave the adventure a fresh start after the time skip and better pacing overall. In this context, it also allowed us to see Luffy reflect upon his childhood with Ace and Sabo, and thus gave us a much deeper look into the development and history of his character. So, to put it shortly, Ace's character was designed to enable crucial plot development for the One Piece story that resulted in one of the most popular arcs of the series, and also set the stage for the second half of the adventure in the New World. Now, it would be quite heartless of me, of course, to say that Ace's character was simply an elegant tool, smartly fit into the story to develop Luffy and the plot. Because, as I said at the beginning, for many, Ace was a deeply likable character. Thus, his death obviously had a strong emotional impact on us readers as well. However, even if you did not like or care for Ace too much before his execution, I think that the moment he died was nonetheless powerful for pretty much any reader. Because not only did Ace sacrifice his just regained life for his little brother Luffy, but Oda also found a quite emotional and yet weirdly satisfying end to his character arc. Firstly, the true magnitude of a minor character's death is always defined by the reaction of the hero who we all empathize with. And Luffy's reaction to Ace's death might very well be the most powerful and heartbreaking thing we've had to witness in the entire series so far. This fact alone gave this moment, and thus Ace's character, a lot of meaning, actually making him even more popular after his death. And secondly, Ace finally managed to find an answer to the question that has haunted him his entire life. Why do I live? All his life, Ace was known for never turning his back on an enemy, no matter how strong they were. And when he finally accepts Whitebeard and his men as his new family, he proudly wears his mark on his back where it could never be harmed. And yet, despite this pride, the last thing he does is turning his back on Akainu in order to protect his family. Having Luffy and Whitebeard taking on the world government itself for his sake shows him that people actually do care whether he lives or not. He actually deserves to live. And so, just having found his answer, he chooses to protect his family over all else. And this will he then inherits to Luffy. What we can take away from all this is that Ace's character is much more than a cool older brother whose death motivated Luffy to train for 2 years and get stronger. No, the hardship and doubt that he carried in his heart for his entire life, as well as the love that he felt for his family, led to the most impactful event in the story up to this point. Not only did he give significant character development to Luffy, but he also shaped and developed the plot of the story in a number of crucial ways. And in the end, his death drove home one of the most, if not the most important theme in One Piece: following your dreams. Because with Ace dying in the end with a smile on his face, just as his father did, Oda tells us that if you pursue your dream and strive for what you really wanted in life, you will have a happy ending. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on Ace and his story? And what character would you like to see me discuss next? Share your thoughts with me in the comments below. If you enjoy One Piece and want to learn more about storytelling, world building, or my thoughts on the latest One Piece chapter, make sure to like and subscribe to become part of the channel right now. I hope to see you around next time, and until then, stay safe and have a wonderful week.